now that I'm back to normal life with working and everything, the number of books that I've read definitely went down, but there were still some interesting ones. And I'm telling you, this bi-weekly rambling is going to be all over the place, book and genre-wise. I don't know what was going on. But let's just get started. Okay, so from the last time we talked, I was in the middle of 2 books, and, well, I finished one of them, and that is Firebrand by Kristen Britton. If you have been around for at least just one video, you know that we're in the middle of a Green Writer read-along, although we're pretty much getting closer to the end, because this is the second to last book, and I just love the way the story goes, starting book 4. Like, book 4 was the first one where I'm always really captivated in the story and what's happening, and there's just so much going on. Book 5 is just the best book in the series. I mean, this book 5 is so incredible from an imaginative perspective, from the way Kristen Britton wrote it, from the character development, the devastation that you feel, and book 6 is just a whirlwind, roller coaster, wild ride, whatever you want to call it, in this series. And I am just so here for it. And if you have read the series, I'm just saying meep, and then you know what else is really good in this book. I had the best time. And I know there are still a couple of folks reading it and enjoying it, so I cannot wait to hear everybody's thoughts on how the story continues, especially from those who are reading this book for the first time. The other book that I was in the middle of, and I kind of was hinting at that I'm not quite sure how much longer I'm going to read this, is The Wall of Storm by Ken Liu. I apologize. I am at chapter 28, page 356, and I'm DNFing this for now. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. It's a great story. I love the premise of it. I love the plot. I enjoy the characters. It's just too slow for me. So that's partially it. And I was talking with Ian a little bit about this book in particular, or the series in general rather, because he loves the series and he's in the middle of the 4th book in the series. And I think what it is for me is because this borrows a lot from Chinese history and Chinese culture, there's obviously a lot of, for Western people, there's a lot of unknown in there. But instead of just, you know, just letting it be, and I mean, a fantasy world is always unknown, I feel he explains a lot and tries to give us a history lesson of this world. There's so much in-depth knowledge about the languages that, like ancient languages that they spoke. In the first 200 pages, we learned about an ancient language that scholars have to learn. And that was such a deep dive into how this language works and how each sign is created. And while it is interesting, if you do that for hundreds of pages, I just kind of lost interest. And while when I was still at page 200, I was like, okay, I still want to know what's happening, and I still kind of want to know what the plot is all about and in which direction we are going. So I will go through all of these history lessons by page 300, what did I say, 56? I gave up. And I hate that I have to do this, because I really want to like this book. And I really want to like the story, because the story itself is amazing. It's just slow, probably. I don't know if that's the right description really for it, but there's just so much background knowledge that I'm just at a point of, I don't want to read another 500 pages in this book, plus another 900 pages in book 3, and another 1,000 pages in book 4, of the same stuff. And basically everybody's saying, no, the way this is written, it continues for the rest of the series. And I hate it that I'm just not getting into it. So, you know, maybe it's a soft DNF. Maybe at one point I'll just pick it up and continue reading. You never know. So, but for now, I just made the decision. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. So the rest of my reading experience was all over the place, starting with the Heartstopper. I read book 1 till 4 in last weekend's afternoon. I heard very good things about Heartstopper, so I put it on my library, you know, not wish list, not hold list, but just saved. I saved it in my library app for, hey, whenever I want to read it. And then I kind of thought, you know what, that's because it's a graphic novel. Let me pick this up after Wall of Storm and just see what it is all about. And then I realized, oh, my library doesn't have book 1 anymore. They only have book 2, 3, and 4. And then at the same time, my Barnes & Nobles put out an Instagram post thingy and said, hey, we have book 1 and 2 back in stock. So me, Barnes & Nobles, buying books, happy. And then I sat outside for, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours last weekend, and I read book 1 till 4 in one swoop, because it's graphic novels, right? So it's really fast reading. So yeah, I had book 1 and 2 already bought, and then I just got book 3 and 4 from the library. It's amazing. It is so fun. I'm not big into graphic novels, so I was surprised how quickly I read through this and how much I enjoyed that time. And I love the drawings, I love the story, I love the characters, they're just adorable. I think the way Alice Oseman handled all these topics that are covered in here, I think she handled it very well, very mindfully, is I think how you can say that. And yeah, it's just adorable, and there's nothing more to say. So if you have a chance, if your library still has book 1 and you haven't read it, try it out. Even if you're not a graphic novel fan, I thought it was well worth, like, that was 3-4 hours spent very, very well, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And then we're continuing in a completely different view. If you've watched my July TBR, you know that one of the books that I wasn't actually sure if I'm going to read it or not, because I wasn't sure if the read-along is still going to happen. I kind of forced Ursi into that now, is The Great Pretender by Susanna Cahalan, who also wrote Brain on Fire. It says it right here. I don't even need to remember. And I read Brain on Fire a while ago, last year, I think, and thought it was good. I think I gave it 3 stars, so it was not a super favorite non-fiction book. So I didn't have super high expectation in this one, especially looking at the cover. I was like, she's a journalist. So this feels like a typical, I'm going undercover journalist story. Originally, I thought she is actually going undercover and redoing the experiment that Nellie Bly back in 1800 something rather did, and that and I have to look up for the name again because I'm forgetting it, David Rosenhan did in the 70s, where they went undercover into psychiatry to see what the conditions are and if people are really, you know, helped there, or if it's just full of people and no one has time to take care of anyone and everybody's actually left to their own devices. And it turns out she is not going undercover. This book is actually just about David Rosenhan's study and digging really deep into it and analyzing what happened in that study. In addition to analyzing that study that David Rosenhan did back in the 1970s, she also added a lot of the research material that she, you know, researched while she was writing the book. So there's a lot of history of mental illnesses and how they have developed from a societal perspective, from a government perspective, from a medicine perspective, how people like her, so if you read Brain on Fire, you know that she was diagnosed with, I forgot what was, schizophrenia and some other things, but it ended up being like an inflammation in her head, like something physical actually, not a mental illness, and she nearly died because of that. So how people like her are mistreated and how accurate all of those diagnoses actually are. And in that regards, I thought it was really interesting. So she's a journalist, so it is like a very sensational piece of a book. So there's a lot of generalization to make it sound more, you know, bigger and and I hate stuff like that. So I want numbers, right? Give me percentages, give me actual data of, you know, not everybody says this, but, you know, how many people are saying this out of how many. But anyway, that's a personal thing for me. But between the lines, and, you know, there were tidbits of information that I actually really enjoyed and thought were super interesting and also rather concerning, if I'm very honest. There were definitely moments in here where I was sitting like, this is unbelievable that this stuff has happened and in part even is still happening. Anyway, I'm glad I read it. Now I can say I read it because I had it on my DVR for quite some time. I'm excited. Ursi is right as I'm filming this, is still in the middle of it, so I'm excited to hear what her thoughts are on this book. She keeps me updated in our little Discord to tell me where she's at and, you know, what scenes she just had to have like a short what the F moment with. I definitely had a couple of those. I mean, there are better books out there talking about mental health and history of mental health and, you know, how this system messes up a lot of things. This is not the best one, but it's an interesting one. If you like, you know, typical journalist uncover stories, or these, if you like these TV shows, what are they called? Like those detective stories where they are uncovering something and it's always very dramatic and very overdone. This is that in book form, just for mental health stuff. But anyway, I'm glad I read it. I think I gave it 2 or 3 stars. I'm not sure. It's not my favorite book. I will never read it again. Some interesting tidbits and definitely some aha moments that I had. And then another random book similar to Heartstopper is Out of the Blue. That was one that I had my eye on for a while. It just came out a month ago, I think. And I saw that as a pre-order somewhere and I love the cover. I thought it was gorgeous. And then I read what the story was about. Essentially, it's about a mere person. So mere people are non-binary in this world, which I think was really interesting. Ross, or Crest, how his actual mer person name is, it has to go on land for a month and has to help someone in a selfless act, you know, of kindness before they can go back into the ocean. And it's kind of, they call it the journey. They have to do that just, you know, to build character essentially. And while they're on land, they meet Sean, I think is his name. Oh God, I'm terrible with names. And Sean just comes out of a really terrible breakup, and they're coming up with a scheme of saying, hey, why don't we fake date and get that person jealous? And then, you know, things go from there. It's a YA book. It's a bit repetitive at times, like what the journey is from a mere person perspective is explained at least 4 or 5 times in the entire book. But besides that, it was really cute. Yeah. It was a fun read. And I actually read that within like 2 days. So it's not just a fun read, it's also a really quick read. I love the characters. Both are amazing. The best friend of Sean, again, names escaping me, Kavia, I think. Kavia, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Really interesting. Thanks to my library for getting me quicker off the hold list on this one than I thought it would be. So those are the books that I finished or DNF'd. To the books that I'm currently reading, and that is back to fantasy. Janny Wurts' The Curse, I can't talk anymore. The Curse of the Mistwraith. That's book 1 in the Wars of Light and Shadow series, which is a 10-book series with I think 3 or 4 arcs in between. And that is a bigger read-along with Joanna and Philip. Alan is part of that. Jimmy from the Fantasy Network is part of that. And they are all reading that at the moment. And I had to, you know, at least once be part in one of those bigger read-alongs and say, yay, I'm so excited for you guys' review and I'm reading with everybody else, you know, FOMO type situation. And boy, did I underestimate this book. So I am about 100 pages in. I just finished chapter 3. I started reading this and I thought my English is really bad. It's like, you're living here for 7 years now and I don't understand every other word. So I was a little bit, you know, demotivated and thought, man, that's terrible. Why can I not understand half of the sentences? Till I looked into the Discord chat in Jimmy's channel, and a lot of people that are very good, you know, mastering the English language and whatnot, said they're having trouble with this book. I was like, okay, so it's the book, it's not me. Good. What I did is I went down a rabbit hole trying to find the German versions of that, and then decided not to do it because they only translated the first 6 books and then never continued. Plus, you don't get them as Kindle, so I would have to order them from Germany, which then is increasing the shipping costs. And I was like, and then I was briefly thinking about, hey, could I get my mom to buy them? And, you know, next time I come over, but who knows when that will be. So anyway, I went down this whole rabbit hole, and then at the end I decided, you know what, it's not going to be German, so I got the Kindle book, because at least in Kindle I can click and translate, you know, the words directly in English, and that has been working out pretty well. Still, dense book, a lot of content, so it's not that I can read it, you know, like 100 pages a day. It's more 30 pages a day. It's very slow. Probably will continue with this. I hope I'm getting this done by the end of the month. There's still a lot going on here, but I'm determined. I'll probably read like some short stories in between to have something lighter while I'm reading this denser book. But anyway, those are the books that I read in the last 2 weeks. Thanks so much for stopping by and listening to my ramblings as always. I hope you have an amazing day. I hope it's not too hot where you are. I know it has been crazy lately all over the world. Well, at least in the northern hemisphere. I hope you stay cool. I hope you stay healthy. And I hope I see you soon with my next video. Bye!